Linda Salant, welcome to the Primal Foundations podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy we're finally getting to talk, get to meet you. This is great.
Yeah, Linda is popularly known on social media as the Carnitarian, which is a great name.
Thanks.
Yeah, great name, and also a ballroom dancer as well.
Yeah, like pro-am, I'm the
Yeah.
amateur, but yeah, I do. That's my hobby. That's my sport.
Yeah, amongst also a carnivore coach as well.
That's right. Yeah.
So you multifaceted. We were kind of talking offline a little bit, and you adopted the carnivore diet back in 2015, and back then it didn't have the popularity it has today. Like, what brought you to the carnivore diet, and what information did you even have access to in 2015?
So at the time in 2015, I mean, I was like on Facebook. Everybody was on Facebook. I don't know if Instagram was
Mhm.
a thing, but I was on Facebook a lot. And at that time, I had some like baby weight to lose because I had had two kids. And I remember back in college, I, well, after college, I was like an Atkins girl. Whenever I wanted to go on a diet, I needed to lose some weight. I would go into ketosis. I would do Atkins, 2 week protocol where you get into ketosis and you stay there. But I never would move out of ketosis. And his 2 week induction phase is really heavy on like meat and cheese and some low carb veg. And I would lose some weight. So back in 2015, I said, okay, I'm going to go back into ketosis. I started looking up like ketogenic recipes. Um, and then somehow Facebook drove me to this group called Zeroing In on Health, where they were doing this really sort of extreme version of a ketogenic diet where you had meat and you had cheese, but you didn't include the vegetables. I was like, that's compelling because, the broccoli was never the best part. The spinach was never the best part for me. It was always like the steaks were the best part. So I looked at the people, I started listening to the conversations in that Facebook group, and I said, you know what? I think I could do this. I could try this. Why not? 30 days of carnivore. Um, and they said, try it for 30 days and see how you feel. There's no commitments. It's not like I was buying anything. It was just a Facebook group. And there were all these people who had been doing it for years and years. I mean, some people had been carnivore for 10 years in that group, some even longer, some 20 years at the time. So I tried it for 30 days, carnivore. I ate, meats, cheeses. I included processed meats. I included, like bacon and pepperoni and all the dairy and all the things. But even with all those additions, like I still felt pretty good, really good. Things started to feel better for me right away. That was beyond the little bit of weight loss that I got. Like I lost a few pounds. Sure, I didn't have a huge amount of weight to lose, but I started to feel better in my joints. And I noticed that like my migraine headaches were going away, which was a consistent thing for me at the time too. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna stick with this. And now it's been, over 9 years that I've been doing carnivore. Little by little, I started to notice more and more health improvements that I thought were just sort of consequences of aging. And that's one thing that I started to talk about right away when I got, into like posting about carnivore was that like you guys, like aging well is possible. Like it's the food that we eat really matters. These aches and pains that you're having, and all of these prescriptions that you're being put on because you've got these diseases of aging, it's unnecessary. Like the food can fix this. And the carnivore diet for me has helped so much, like with so many things from, correcting my cycle and helping me with something called interstitial cystitis, which is like a chronic bladder pain. It's helped me with lipedema and reducing my inflammation that comes from that. Um, it's helped like me with my dancing just strictly because I've got better balance. I'm like more proportioned, but it's helped with my strength. It's helped with, gaining muscle, losing fat, the body recomp stuff. And so there's really just no reason for me to ever go back to including vegetables. We haven't really talked about like mental health, but absolutely there was improvement because I had anxiety, depression, days where I didn't want to get out of bed. And that just doesn't happen anymore. Like panic attacks are gone. It's wild. Like the list of things that people talk about carnivore helping, it's such a joke, right? People say, oh, you're carnivore and you're like bulletproof. And you can make memes about it, like, oh, carnivore helped my marriage, and carnivore helped me start my car in the morning, or whatever it is. It's like a joke, but like there's so many things that can really help, because getting rid of those plant foods that cause inflammation, you just never know how that inflammation is going to affect your body. And when you get rid of that inflammation, things just start to work better. So I'm in it to win it. I mean, like I said, I'm not going back. So that's kind of my gig. That's kind of my story.
I mean, that's a super common story that we're hearing. Most people, I would say not everybody, but most are coming to this diet because they want to lose some weight. They've heard of keto, they've heard of Atkins, all that stuff, and they're just gaining some popularity. And they do it to lose a few excess pounds for whatever goal that they might have, and it ends up being, yeah, you're getting, oh, like my aches and pains, my headaches are gone. It's a domino effect, and a lot of people, you're right. You said earlier, they chalk it up to old age. No, it's not. It's not old age. Like as you're getting older, yeah, you're gonna have those little things here and there. But to have this mental clarity that no other diet has, plus the benefits of, you're physically gonna feel better. It's crazy. Like it's when you're
Yeah,
right.
it's
People
wild.
you tell people about it, they're like, nah, that can't be true. Not all those things. That's
Yeah,
bullshit. Yeah. Um,
absolutely. They think you're lying. They think you're just like, you're crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. You've just drank the carnivore Kool-Aid, and you're faking it, or it's going to be temporary. And but no, it's for real. And people go on diets and they're hungry, right? Like if you're trying to lose weight, typically you're like, okay, I'm sacrificing. I'm going to suffer a little bit, but I've got that wedding coming up in a month, and so I want to fit into that dress that I want to wear or whatever, and you are hungry. And then, right after the event that you're cutting weight for, you blow right back up, because you go right back up to the same sort of bad food habits. And with carnivore, it's just stable. It's like there's no need to feel hungry. Um, you're just feeding yourself well, and energy is good. And the diet, just for weight loss, doesn't feel like a diet. And all the health benefits that come along with it are just a bonus.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of having Jessica Randell on here, and she talks about, she calls it carnivore bliss,
Mm,
where we don't really understand how good we can feel because we never felt like that before. And
yeah.
to your point, I'll tell people too, I'm like, man, I feel so good. My headspace is great. Anxiety isn't there anymore. I got into carnivore pretty hard after, like, well, we were still kind of locked down a little bit from COVID. So 2019 is when I really got it, and from being locked down and then like really changing my diet, because I was in the house just like everybody else, drinking beers, having pizza, like this is gonna last a few weeks. And then I gained like 30 pounds over COVID. I was like, I gotta do something. And then when I made this change, I was like, wow, not only do I feel good, I look better, but like my mental space is just, I've just felt so clear headed that I just never had that before in any diet. Because any diet that you ever do before, like you've ever done carnivore, I don't know if you had this experience, but it was always like, I'm sacrificing, like you said, I'm always hungry, I'm irritable, right? And I don't feel good
Yeah.
through dieting.
Absolutely, because
Mhm.
we typically restrict, and you are cutting back on fats, usually way too much, to get any energy out of the food you're eating. And so, some people, I have done some crazy diets, like Hollywood juice, such and such, right? Where you're having like 40 calories of orange juice every day or something ridiculous, and you're supposed to sip it all day long. It's torture. It is, and you just won't feel good. It's just absolute torture. It's not a great way to lose weight. You gain it all back. It's such a relief to think to myself, like, I don't ever have to diet again. Like, it's not even a consideration, that I'm dieting. Like the carnivore, it's odd that it's the carnivore diet, but really it's more just like the carnivore way of eating, right? And I don't ever have to do that again. Like I don't need to do Weight Watchers or LA weight loss or any of those, diet cookies or shakes or cleanses and any of that trash. It's like just, eating the way I'm eating now is so sustainable. And I'm so happy that it's another thing that makes it easier to maintain, because when you're, crash dieting that way and you don't feel good, you can't sustain it. You're not going to do that forever. And you still have not learned a way to properly eat. And, so I try to help people learn, how to properly eat, like what really is food and what is really not food. And, that's not to say that everybody needs to be carnivore. And some people can absolutely include some carbohydrates, some plants to tolerance. I do include spices and stuff. But it's just that the majority of what people are eating, the huge bulk of what people are eating is plant-based, and it's not doing anybody any favors, So
If it would have worked, it would have worked.
right,
You know,
right.
and this is something that I like to say to some people too. And as we talk about carnivore, carnivore in it, like as a definition, is a restrictive diet technically, but it also increases food freedom. Do you agree with that?
Well, I do. There's a lot of people who, for me, I've never been a real food addict. Like I'm absolutely a volume eater. I enjoy eating. Like I grew up around food. Food is tradition. Food is holiday. Food is culture. And that's definitely there for me. But I was never like a sugar addict or sort of a slave to carbohydrate. And so for some people, switching to carnivore does give them that food freedom, because they never have to, once you're over that addiction, you are now like unshackled from the chains of that carbohydrate addiction, where you are not thinking about food all day. You're not thinking like, okay, I'm going to be gone for 4 hours. How many granola bars should I pack? Like, I'm going to need to stop at the gas station and grab a juice or grab an energy drink. You're just never, you know, unable to sleep because you're like, oh, that candy bar is in the pantry calling my name. So for a lot of people, especially people with, food addiction, it can be super freeing. The simplicity of it is tremendous, because you're sticking to a general guideline of what is the food that you eat. Here's what it is. And that it's a restrictive, as you say, sort of list of things. Now, I can tell you that within that restriction, there are hundreds of ways to cook meat. There are so many different recipes you can do. If you want to stick to ground beef and bacon, like that's cool too. But there are hundreds of recipes and different ways you can do it. So there's some, flexibility in there, but not having to think about recipe planning if you don't want to, that's great. And, not feeling compelled to eat things that are not good for you, it's also pretty freeing.
The liberating feeling of I'm on this carnivore diet, but
Mm-hmm.
I get to eat till I'm full. What?
Yeah.
That's that's hard. It's honestly hard for people. I would say it's hard for people that have done the crash dieting, yo-yo dieted, and that's one of the things I want to get into too is, when you coach clients, you do one-on-one sessions with them, you know, with them going to carnivore, is there like, okay, I want to step my toe into the carnivore pond. How do I get started? And it really that first piece of how much do I eat? What do I eat? That's pretty much the common stepping stone. How do you navigate that with clients?
So typically clients come to me like one of two ways. Either they've been carnivore for a while and they're not seeing the weight loss results that they want, or they come to me from a standard American diet or just an absolute trash food diet and they want to start carnivore from scratch. For those people that want to start carnivore from scratch, I tell them just get your ingredients right. Don't count your macros. Don't worry about fat percentages. Try it the simplest way, because for a lot of people, the simplest way of just finding the meat that you like, what sounds good to you? You're in the supermarket, you're at the meat counter, you're looking at the selection. What looks good to you? If it's meat, get it, eat it. You may find absolute success with that. And you can eat as much as you want until you're full. You may find absolute success with that. You don't know, but it's worth trying the simplest way first. And so I don't recommend that those people necessarily track their food because they've never done it before and maybe they don't need to. Some people don't have any kind of like metabolic derangement where they are not going to lose weight if their insulin is low and their food choices are right. If they are eating meat, they're keeping their insulin low, they're opening up their fat stores, they can release some weight, and those people will be super happy with that simplicity. Then there's that other group, that second group of people that come to me. They've been carnivore for a while. Some of them for years have been carnivore for a while. And they've tried different ways. They've honed in on all of these different hacks. You know, they talk to me about their electrolytes. They talk to me about their macro ratios, and they talk to me about their different types of fasting and what they've been doing. And I will work with those people to sort of hone in on if intuitive carnivore has not been working for you, then let's get you to a slight calorie deficit. I put their information in, I do the math on, you know, what their total daily energy expenditure is based on their base metabolic rate, based on their lean body mass, you know, the whole shebang. And I'll give them a very slight caloric deficit just to take that factor off the table. Because sometimes people are overeating, like way overeating, especially on fat, which is the energy portion. You know, like protein's not a great energy source, right? And if you are trying to gain and get energy, be energetic, do the thing that, you know, a lot of hardcore carnivores say, you know, eat a lot of fat. You got to eat a lot of fat. Sometimes people are overeating on energy. Sometimes people are undereating. And so they're stalled at their weight because they are not releasing anything because they are sort of starving. I hate to say starvation mode. It's, you know, I don't like the term, but like their bodies aren't releasing anything because they're under eating. And so we sort of figure out where they should be calorie wise just to take that off the table. And then you can start looking at other things that matter, like the amount of light you're getting, you know, the amount of sleep you're getting, the quality of your sleep, the type of movement that you're getting in. Are you working out? Are you using your muscles? Like, what are your stress levels like? How is your recovery? You know, so all of those factors matter as well. So that's where I sort of start these two different groups of people when I do coaching. And you know, some people need more help than others. Some people need more consistent guidance than others, especially those who have been carbohydrate addicts. They say to me, I was doing so well and I don't know what happened, but, and then there's, you know, some episode that they described to me that they dipped into something they shouldn't have. And those people, I love to consistently just give them accountability and motivation, because sometimes those people know exactly what to do and they can do it for some period of time, but without somebody helping them stay on track, they lose their way. So I'm there for that too.
I appreciate this view because there is a difference. Somebody coming to you for autoimmune issue, somebody just starting out, but somebody that's plateaued. That's that's a lot of carnivore people don't talk about the plateau, and but it's important because carnivore works until it doesn't for you. I am a case in point. Like for your, you know, based off of all the examples that you gave, I've slowly gained weight on carnivore, and I'll sprinkle 95% of my diet is straight red meat, water, coffee. Like that's it. But I'll have blueberries every now and again. I'll have an avocado with some cheese, right? I don't think that did it. You know,
I
every
don't think
once in,
so
I
either.
don't think that having those little things every once in a while or a couple pieces of fruit here and there are going to make the huge weight jumps, that not the huge weight jumps, but I was just increasing my weight. My activity hasn't really changed. I'm getting sleep. I'm hydrated. I couldn't really figure it out, but I plateaued and started to gain weight. And so I was having the fattier cuts of meat. I was doing 80-20. And I really just I started by, I usually do 2 pounds, right? That was my thing. Like 2 pounds of whatever it was would satiate me and fill me up. So then I started playing around with it. I started taking like a quarter pound away, and just every 4 meals, that quarter pound of like ground beef would be just like 1 pound for the next meal kind of deal. And I would just kind of like keep replacing food. And I slowly started to lose weight. And then I started saying, okay, maybe, maybe I just do fat cycling. And that's actually, I felt like has helped too, where I will, because I don't want to go low fat. Like that's not what I want. But because I'm going to quote Vinny Tortorich here. He says you can't eat as much fat as you want without impunity. So
Yes.
I would go 97 lean ground beef. Says I'm getting my protein. I'm still being active. I want to build muscle. But then I would, cycle in that week 80-20, and go back and forth and not always get the fatty ribeye. I would get like the New York strip that was a little bit leaner. And I was just out with some friends yesterday. They're like, "Ah, man, you're looking good, looking thinner." I go,
Nice.
"Yeah, man." And I'm not starving. I'm eating till I'm full, and I'm not drastically cutting the calories. Are you Robert Sykes,
Yes.
Keto Savage,
Yeah.
at Hack Your Health? He was on the food addiction panel, and one of the things he was talking about, which I really loved, is he would to get ready for his bodybuilding shows. He would I would literally just take every week one egg away.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. One egg.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not going to drastically drop down. He's one egg a week for X amount of weeks before my show, and that'll get the weight down. So you have a bunch of people in the carnivore space that are like, eat as much fat as you want. You can't get fat from fat. Well, I'm I'm case
Mm-hmm.
in point. Like I've had to mess with my fat a little bit. You can't just eat as much as you want without it's not like calories don't matter whatsoever. Um, but yeah,
Correct.
I think that's something that we as coaches and people need to talk about, because there is a little bit of a limit in my
Yeah.
opinion. But
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. And just what you're saying, when you do that magic number of 2 pounds of meat, that
mhm.
can look so different based on your cut selection. Like 2 pounds of ribeye is way different than 2 pounds of tenderloin. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the amount of calories, let's just call it energy, right? The amount of energy coming from fat on those two different 2 pounds. Now, most people aren't eating 2 pounds of tenderloin, but some people will go and get that 93%, or like you said, 97% lean beef and say, I'm going to eat 2 pounds of that. And they're like, this carnivore thing is working great for me. Look at how I'm dropping weight. Somebody else goes and buys 2 pounds of 70-30 ground beef, and they pour all that rendered fat back on the meat because that's what people are telling them to do, and they're eating that 2 pounds of meat. There is a huge difference in the amount of energy that you're going to be able to store based on, those two different meals. And so that can, for any woman over 40 will tell you, like, the calories actually really do matter. Like, they matter. And maybe when you're young, or if you are, super buff and you're in the gym and you're training, you can say things like calories don't matter, because you'll just, adapt, burn them off. Your metabolism's working great. But when you overconsume energy for you, it's gonna get stored. Like, it's just gonna get stored. And it depends on the person, how much fat they can tolerate. We don't take into account typically things like calories we burn by thinking all day long. But somebody who is like an intense person, thinking, working, or well, I'll just say that they burn a ton of calories just from thinking. And as opposed to somebody who's really just kind of relaxed and not thinking about much, there's a difference even there. So lives are so different. The way people burn that energy, utilize that energy, can be so different, that the calories absolutely, they do matter. I like your idea of fat cycling, and that you are never going hungry. Now, if you wanted to stick with a certain fat percentage, like instead of going super lean and super fat, super fat, you could just find a nice middle ground, like an 85% ground beef, and just do that all the time. And just know that you're going to feel satisfied with that 85%. And I think that people can very easily mess around with their fat percentages by using something like ground beef, because it's pretty, regulated in terms of like fat content, right? You know like what you're going to get. So you can tweak in just picking out a different package. Like if you think, well, I'm not satisfied with 2 pounds of 93.7, try that 80-20 and see if you're satisfied and you're not going hungry, because you may need that extra fat to feel that satiety. For me, if I go heavy on the fat and I know that, I need to sort of stay around a certain amount of calories, I don't feel that satiety from the fat. But if I switch to leaner cuts where I'm getting more like 60% of my calories from fat rather than 70 or 80% of my calories from fat, I feel so much more satiated. For me, I know that this higher protein approach that I do keeps me feeling full. And so that's one way to keep eating carnivore in a way that keeps you satisfied, is just, messing with the fat macros. And then you don't have to go hungry, because if you need that volume to make you feel satisfied, or if you need that protein to make you feel satisfied, and you're going with higher fat cuts, you're going to be way over on energy intake at the end of the day, because to do volume of ribeye is going to put you way over, or any kind of volume on like short ribs or oxtail. You're just going to be way over your caloric needs. So if you shift it a little bit towards the leaner cuts, you can get the volume you need, you can get the protein you need, and then some, and find your sort of carnivore pocket.
Yeah. And for people that are newer to carnivore or just starting out, if they do gain some weight off the get, is there a silver lining to that a little bit?
Well, sometimes, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that come and they're under muscled, um, or they've got some metabolic healing that they need to do because they've been undernourished. Their fat intakes haven't been high enough. Their protein intakes haven't been high enough. They've been eating inflammatory seed oils and stuff like that. So when you start getting in the real nutrient dense foods, some people do gain weight. And I see it as a good thing. I encourage people to get DEXA scans if they can swing it, or do an in-body, so they can see that sometimes that weight gain is a net positive. That, like I had tremendous body recomposition when I switched from higher fat to lower fat, higher protein. It was like 3 pounds of weight loss. And you'd think after, I was doing like a 10-week experiment, after 10 weeks of like, recording everything that I eat, it was a lot of work. I don't generally love tracking. I did all that work. And for what, 3 pounds? It's kind of disappointing. But when you understand that you've gained 9 pounds of muscle, or 5 pounds of muscle, and you've lost 8 pounds of fat, like that means a lot more than 3-pound weight loss. So, and you can say that for weight gain too, because some people, when they go to carnivore, they will get weight loss, fat loss, and they'll get muscle gain. And they'll say, this isn't working for me. I haven't lost a pound. But if you don't know what's going on the inside, you can't see that there's actually a net positive there, like a really important net positive, because muscle gains above all, I think, are most important. So, weight gain does happen. And then some people, after they go through that first adaptive period, they'll start to see then more of the fat loss that they were hoping for.
And understanding or changing a little bit of a narrative that, the scale isn't the end all be all. You know, you might have gained a few pounds, but how do you feel?
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't there's a premium that people don't realize on how you feel on this diet versus, what's on the scale or, how you aesthetically look. I think people really got to focus on how they feel and getting healthier metabolically versus, we're a very vain society. Like we see the magazines, we see the television shows like Zac Efron on Baywatch. Have you ever heard of him talk about his story about Baywatch?
Haven't.
The movie where he's getting down, it's unrealistic. It's like he was like maintaining like a 4% body fat for like the entire movie. And he talks after he gained a ton of weight back. And he's like, I regret doing that film and looking like that because it was so unsustainable where it's like that would be his persona for all of his movies. He's like, I can't do it. I can't sustain it. But yeah, that's what we think is healthy. But people that step on the stage, those bodybuilding competitions, I mean, they look phenomenal. That's a sport. Like they do that for their sport, but they're literally stepping on death's door for
Yeah.
5 to 8 minutes, however long they're going to be on stage for that day. And then they run off. And what do you see them do right away? Just boom, just consume cake and cookies and whatever because they just had their body fat's so low, and you'll see them puff up again. Yeah, so changing the narrative of some people, yeah, you want to look better, but it's like really, how do you feel? How do you feel? And then this is another thing I want to talk about too is like education, right? It's so hard to kind of pull. It's like almost pulling somebody out of the matrix. We go the current landscape of food, you walk into the grocery store and there's the aisles of produce and the vibrant colors of everything. You walk in, it's so abundant, and we think or we're accustomed to like having these fruits and vegetables around us, but people don't really understand that they were very seasonal, right? And they were very few and far between. We did not, thousands of years ago, we did not have, a Kroger's down
Right.
the street. Like
Yeah.
people assume that there's just a plentiful of fruits and vegetables, and this is how we're designed to eat. But that's not really the case. You ever talk about that with clients that are kind of trying to understand?
Yeah, I do. I mean, most of the people who come to me sort of know that I am not going to help them, eat the rainbow, right? And so they understand that I'm not a proponent of eating fruits and vegetables. And they do sometimes say to me things like, well, seriously, Linda, like really, is it really that bad? Is it really that bad? That's what I hear a lot. Like, it's just an apple. Like, it's not gonna kill me. It's not like I'm smoking a pack of cigarettes. Like it's just an apple. And so I say, that's fine. And maybe you can tolerate an apple, maybe, but like at some point you should try to see what it would feel like to, sort of deplete yourself of that carbohydrate and see how you do without spiking your insulin during the day 5 or 7 times during the day. See what changes happen. And so I think that the food environment that we're in is so difficult. When you mention education, it's like for the kids especially, it's hard because, and this kills me because I see these posts about, parents are so lazy and all they have to do is just teach their kids to eat proper food. Like, they should just be eating like eggs and meat and fish and cheese. And you're a terrible parent if your kid eats anything else. And then in the comments, you'll get these parents that are like, yeah, my kids are so great. Like they just follow the example that I lead, and we eat nothing but meat and eggs. And my kid loves that. And then you find out that their kids are 2 and 4 years old and they're not yet in school and they're not yet at play dates and they're not yet at, the soccer field where they're handing out Teddy Grahams or Triscuits or, juice boxes and Gatorades. And so the food environment is so hard. We are often told that if we don't teach our kids to eat everything in the supermarket, that we're going to give them an eating disorder, as though everything in the supermarket is a viable option. Everything in the supermarket is real food. They should eat it all, or else they have food issues. But I beg to differ. The food issues come from eating the stuff that's not actually food. So if people want to reintroduce carbohydrate, they can kid themselves and say like these enormously sweet, huge, genetically modified fruits and vegetables that are in our supermarket all year round, are, nature's bounty and we're meant to eat that. But like you and I know, like you said, those have been around, for a very brief period of time in our history of food. So we were not meant to eat, apples and bananas the way that they are now. So they can fool themselves and think that that's, real food. But what happens is that even when they're eating those whole foods, these kids run into problems with blood sugar control and behavioral issues. And so put aside the fact that, yeah, we're giving them fruit roll-ups, we're giving them processed food, like put that aside. Even if you're just giving them orange juice, fruit smoothies, yogurt bars, organic chips, whatever it is, crackers, gluten-free, and you're trying to be healthy, teach your kids how to eat healthfully, it gets them into trouble. And then people say, I don't understand why all of a sudden I have diabetes. I've always eaten according to the food pyramid. I've always eaten what we've been told is the healthy food. And now I'm in trouble. How did this happen? How did I get fatty liver disease? Because even those whole foods are just super high in carbohydrate that we're not meant to be eating all year round.
It's such a hard thing. I don't have any kids, and this is one of the things I talked about with Adrian too, as well as like I don't have any kids, but I can't imagine navigating nowadays. You have a kid that's in sport. I'm a PE teacher by trade, and like I see what these kids are having before games, right? If I'm coaching that year or whatever that season, and the parents are in charge of like the team
Yeah,
snacks, it's all out of a box, it's all out of a package, and it's
it's
all
rough.
yeah, and again, I don't say nothing because like that's not my place. Like that, if that's what they want to eat, it's up to the parents to choose what they want for their kids. So it's never my place. But I literally don't teach. I used to teach health in high school, and I used to go off the book. Like saturated fats are bad and all this stuff. And now I'm like, oh, I showed in my classroom forks over knives. And I thought, yeah, right. I'm like looking back, I'm like, dude, what a disservice I'm doing to but that's all I knew. We're watching
Yeah,
Food Inc. and that was like the propaganda. And it's hard to talk to parents, talk to, young kids about any of this stuff because it's just so against the grain that they're like, oh, what are you talking about? My father had a triple bypass, right? Quadruple, triple, something like that. It
wow.
wasn't good. And I talked to him after the fact, and I was doing carnivore for a while, and I lost a ton of weight. I feel great. And I saw what they put him on after. I'm reading through the pamphlet, like low sodium, orange juice, oatmeal, all this whatever, low fat chicken breast, vegetable, whatever. I'm like, this is all the stuff that got you here. Like they
Mhm.
put like you could have this much jello, this much of a brownie, whatever it was. And I'm like, this is all the stuff that got you here. And lo and behold, he's gained all the weight back. Like he
Yeah,
lost weight after that, he's doing rehab and all that stuff, and he's gained it all back, if not more. And I'm like,
right.
this is what are we doing?
Yeah, because that diet, that low fat food pyramid diet, low sodium, I mean, that's not helping anybody. It's not fixing the cause of his metabolic disease and his inflammation, certainly not his heart trouble. It's just not going to do him any favors to be eating oatmeal. That's one of the worst, people believing that oatmeal is the best way to start your day and, some of the greatest whole grain food out there. Like, it's that's a really rough one to convince people. Like, the people that come to me, like I said, they're kind of aware, but my family, like they think like, no, this can't possibly be true. Maybe it works for you, but still I'm sticking with my oatmeal. Like it's hard. People have been really sold a bill of goods, and um it's hard to back out of that too. People who've suffered through and have like, found this regimented life, like of like, I eat my blueberries and oatmeal in the morning, and I have my toast, and I have, my dinner of chicken breast and broccoli, and I'm fine. You know, they're not feeling great. Maybe they've got some issues, they've got some joint pains, but they're not willing to give that up because they may be looking slim on the outside. And then they end up like look in their medicine cabinet, like, are they really doing well, these people? They most likely not. Like most people in the US have more than one prescription. And it's not because we're not following the food pyramid. Like we are following the food pyramid. And 7 to 8, what is it, 7 to 11 servings of grains, and what counts towards that, right? Like pasta counts towards that, Triscuits count towards that. So like, breakfast for dinner counts towards that, and it's just a bunch of processed plant food that's just not doing us any favors.
Yeah, highly processed and highly palatable. Like
Yeah.
that's the other issue is like I talk about it all the time. If you give me a pizza in front of me, there's no question if I could or couldn't eat the whole large pizza. I could.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not satisfied. I can eat the whole thing. I want some more, to tell you the truth. I can continuously eat. Like, chips, Pringles, which is not even a chip apparently. Pringles can't be classified as chips because there's no potato in them apparently. It's like just
Get out of here.
oh yeah, it's pretty funny. Like Pringles are not constituted as chips because there's no potatoes in there. It's just like mush. And they just
Oh,
like factor it. That's like in this big factory. It's highly
I used
produced.
to love Pringles. That's problematic.
You remember they came out with the Italian pizza
No,
Pringles?
did they?
Yeah.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that was a thing. But that's how you hook the kids, and it's a big thing. And I mean, we're talking earlier, like, yeah, they think we're all conspiracy theorists, but I mean, $4.5 trillion the United States spends on healthcare.
It's
$4.5
ridiculous.
trillion dollars, and it's just this cycle.
It's big
Um,
business.
it is big business. Return customers in the hospital are better than no customers.
That's
You
right.
know,
They know that to be true. Like they know that you'll be back. Like they are counting on it. They know you'll be back. And I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but when I see the, USDA guidelines come they come up for revision every 5 years. And when they don't change, and all of those corporate interests are involved, because the people on the committee have all these conflicts of interest, and the food industry is just so involved in the guidelines that we get it, then you start to think deeper about like, why are we being recommended this trash diet? When you realize all the corporate interests that are involved there, then you look at the hospitals and the doctors and all the corporate interests that are involved there. You just realize that it is all sort of like intertwined with food and pharma, drugs and profit. And the business model requires that patients remain patients. And I mean, cancer is big business, right? And so, what is the incentive to really cure cancer? Because it destroys the model completely. It just destroys a huge chunk of that economy. And it's, every hospital needs to fill the beds. So I like to give people the benefit of the doubt and say, well, they're not evil. They're unknowingly keeping you sick. But I'm starting to believe that it's really that they are knowingly keeping you sick, and it's very upsetting when you sort of land at that spot at every turn where you think to yourself, like, no, they absolutely know what they're doing. They've created a bunch of addicts, and they've created a bunch of people who they think they need medication to continue on with their lives. And people younger and younger are being prescribed medications that used to be only for very old people, and now they want to get kids on statins. There's like nothing but damage is going to come from that. So yeah, it's rough out there. It's just upside down land.
I mean, what you're doing, what other people in this space are doing, this grassroots thing It's important. And I think about it all the time. I'm like, why the heck do I even have a podcast? Why do I even post anything on Instagram? Like, what am I doing? But, and I talk about this with some people sometimes. I'm like, sometimes I just get one DM. I'm not famous. I'm not popular.
Hmm.
I get one DM from somebody that's like, oh, I caught this. It's really good. I'm going to start working out more. Or I incorporated more meat into my diet. I feel really great. I have a buddy I just was in the car with the other day, and he was like, yeah, I've been doing more. He does more of like animal based, but he's really doing more meat and a little bit of fruit, more red meat, fatty meat. And he's
Nice.
like, he goes, I used to have really bad eczema and it's gone. It's gone.
Awesome.
Right. And he's like, all of the years that I've spent with the stupid creams and it's jacked me up because it's a steroid. And all I had to do was just change what I ate. And I was like, yeah, man. I'm like, it's messed up.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Um,
That's it. It's so messed up. And don't you feel like you're just so angry? Like, well, doesn't that make him so angry? Because the doctors just don't want to hear it. Either they're not allowed to say anything different or they don't want to say anything different, but they will never tell you the truth. So all that time he spent, that suffering, the the money, it's so unnecessary. And people, when they're angry enough, like maybe there will be like some kind of a real social shift. But it's so frustrating. But you're right. It's like we are like on the top of the mountain, like screaming at all the people, and the people are like, "No, I'll just take this pill."
Right. It's the easy way. It's the easy way. Where's the shot? Where's the pill? Where's the
Right.
fix me now? And we vote with our dollars. We vote
Yeah.
with our dollars. If nobody buys the junk, if nobody buys the pop, soda, depending where you're at,
Yeah.
it it goes away. But I want to transition to we're talking about some eating and things like that, physical activity, right? What is, because you're ballroom dancing, that's really hard. I feel like I think I can dance. Uh
But he can dance.
Anybody can dance. Does it look good? I don't know. But that it's a very physical demanding sport of dancing. How do you prepare for that? Is it like weight training mixed with some other things?
Yeah. So, back in the early days when I was training, I asked my coach at the time, like, what can I do outside of dance? And at that time, I was going twice a week. I was taking one 45-minute lesson twice a week. He said, if you want to get better at dancing, you want to get stronger, you just need to dance more. And it's that kind of advice that you get for any sport. Like if you want to be better at basketball, just play basketball more. You want to get better at baseball, like just play baseball more. You'll get better at it. And if your goal is to run really fast, practice running really fast and you'll get good at it. And so for me, the ballroom training has been all I've been doing. That's it for the last, I would say, like 3 years. I haven't gone to the gym. I stopped lifting weights. What I've done is I've transitioned from 2 days a week to 3 days a week. And instead of going for 45 minutes, I go for 2 hours every time. And so it's a full body workout. Like I am beat. The next day, I am feeling sore. And this makes my muscles grow. I eat the protein, I do the workouts. Um, it's there's definitely some cardio in there. Like I am sweating at the end of it. So it's great for endurance, cardio capacity, and it's great for strength. Um, it helps with balance. I recommend to everybody to just head to a ballroom studio at some point in your life. They always have these little introductory packages that you can go and take a ballroom lesson. It's far more physical than a lot of people realize once you've been doing it for a while. Like if you just do some social ballroom dancing, you've been to the club, you go to a wedding, you dance a little bit. It's not really a workout, but this stuff is intense. And all the muscle gains that I've gotten in the last few years, it's just been from dancing. It's a full body workout. I love it. And I take my recovery very seriously. And so I don't do 2 days in a row. Sometimes with competition, I have to dance 2 days in a row, but I I do a dance day and then I take a recovery day and then I do another dance day. And that seems to work for me. I love it.
Yeah, I get there's a fad of the sports specific training, And it just, to me, and this is somebody who coaches sports, I'm like, guys, no. There's no sports, no such thing as sports specific training. Your sport is the specific, right? And if you want to be better at whatever that it is, do that. I think strength training can help. Like if you want to build some strength, like that's your cup, right? Strength is the cup. And the stronger you are, you can put more things into the cup, which is great. But don't get away from the flash. Like there's so many flashy, stupid things out there that they're like throwing med balls around and they're doing these jumping that's going to translate to the sport. I'm like, no, 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 you do those things in the sport. It's all
Yeah,
about getting you stronger. But I mean, 2 hours of dancing is a lot.
it's a lot. It's a sweaty time.
Yeah. And you have to hold those like very
Yeah,
firm positions
absolutely.
and just
Yeah.
holding. And that's the one thing, a lot of with my clients, I teach them how to like hold tension in their body when they're lifting, just just changing the amount of tension you hold in a plank versus somebody that like I could do a plank for 4 minutes. Okay, do these cues and hold as max tension as possible. You can't do it. You can't hold it for
Hmm.
4 minutes, but you guys are holding this, whatever this
Oh, the
posture is
frame, the
called, the
frame.
frame, the
Yeah,
frame,
frame.
and you guys are holding tension for over time, which time under tension builds
Oh yeah.
muscle. People
I
don't
mean,
realize that. Yeah.
it's wild. Like, especially like you say, when you're holding frame in those closed dances, like those smooth dances where you see the two people, and maybe you've seen this, I've seen this on Dancing with the Stars or whatever. Those two people are like locked in hold, and that frame is solid. What I'm working on is I am stretching from elbow to elbow, and I am holding that width in my back, and I'm like running sprints at the same time. So you're dancing and running sprints. Now, when you're running, you've got like flexibility in there in your stride. But when you're ballroom dancing and you're running, it is intense. The sweat just starts to drip off because you have to look like it is so easy, but it is so hard. It's like they say it's like a swan on the water where you see the swan just gliding across the water. But what you don't see is all of that, the feet flapping underneath the water, all of that you don't see. And so we are hiding all of this time under tension and trying to just keep our cool, but it is intense. And when you walk off the floor, like during a competition, you walk off the floor and you're still holding it. Like, how like with weightlifting, you hit your pose, you drop the weight, you can clap your hands, celebrate yourself, or, go cry or whatever. You're done. You're done. You did your task. We're not done when we're done. You've still got to hold your posture. You walk off, you walk into the crowd and you're still holding posture because you're still being judged. And so it is like, it's really intense. But once you know that the judges can't see you anymore, you're like, ooh, you're feeling it. It is wild. It's a great sport. And it's something that people can do into their 80s. I mean, like into your 90s. I plan to do it until I just drop dead and they can bury me under the dance floor. Like it is such an incredible sport, and you can go as hard as you want. Some of it's like it depends on the dance and it depends on your technique, but it can be really intense. And the people who do it professionally are in incredible shape, like incredible shape. I mean, I probably you've seen like Derek Huff from Dancing with the Stars with his shirt off, and he's buff. He doesn't
Yeah.
I don't think he's in the gym lifting for an hour. He's just dancing, you know? So it's great. It's great for strength, endurance. It's great for your mind, keeping your mobility. Obviously, if you can remember the steps, it's great for the mind. If you can move with balance, it's great for everyday function, because if you can run and stop, you can catch yourself when you fall, in the house. And it's those kind of things that keep us going when we're older. It's like, my biggest fear is like falling down, breaking a hip, ending up in the hospital, and that's the end of me. That's like how the story goes. You get old, you broke a hip. Oh, grandma's not the same anymore since she broke her hip. I don't ever want that to be me. So I intend to just keep on moving, keep on dancing, keep my muscles strong, keep my brain active by keeping learning technique. And I'm going to age really well. Like I don't see, there's no exit strategy for me. Like I can do this forever.
Yeah. age, like, oh, I'm getting older, therefore,
Yeah.
I should have aches and pains. I should have no, like you should be feeling good until you're freaking 80, if not older, and be able and capable to do all of the demands that life throws at you and then some. Like
Yeah.
that's the goal. It shouldn't be this narrative of like I'm just getting older. Like
Yeah.
I turned 50, so I'm, whatever. This is why I have a gut. Like, no, man. Like
I
you
know.
can
Can you
always
imagine? These people just give up on themselves because of some arbitrary number. I hate to see it. I just, the over the hill thing, it's like, oh, what are you going to do? You're getting old. I heard that so much growing up. It was like, I really did believe that when you got old, you got sick, you got on medication, and you sort of just withered away with aches and pains. And you better enjoy your life while you're young because it's never going to be this good. And it's like, I'm feeling better now than I did in my 20s. And I've got nothing but hope for the future. Like, I don't see myself getting weaker. Every week I train, I get stronger. When I see these 80-year-old women in the gym running, like, you see these Instagram accounts like Old Lady Gains, right? Like, that's one of these accounts where they feature these older people doing what seems to be so incredible, but it's not incredible if you just keep it up. If you never stop, you just maintain, you can get there. If you're in your 40s now, you can get there and then just maintain in your 60s and 70s and 80s. And it's like, wouldn't that be great if everybody sort of believed that they could do that? But people are just convinced because it's so normal to decay with age. It's just so normalized, and it shouldn't be. And I hope that people can learn that you don't have to just wither away in age and, like, be disregarded. And it just doesn't have to be that way.
what's the quote? It's like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is right now.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you didn't start 20 years ago, so what? Like you can start today. And, I think just stuff that you're posting and, educating people and showing them that these things are possible, is good inspiration. The the next thing I want to talk about too is kind of finish up here is you have your own line of spices here so people can actually be cooking at home. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously spices aren't carnivore. They all come from a plant, right? But, some people can tolerate seasonings. I do very well with seasonings, and I've always included them in my carnivore shebang from day one. Like, I've never done a period of time where I've just done meat and salt. I've always included, spices. I'm Italian. I love spices. And I think it makes, for me, carnivore more sustainable. So yeah, I had this idea one day. I made up a chili blend of spices and I told everybody about it on my Instagram account. And people were like, I want that. I want that. Can I get that? How can I get that? I did a little run, a short run of like these spice blends. I sent them out to people, and the response was just so incredible. People were like, it's the greatest thing. I think it happens to be the greatest chili ever. But it started with the chili blend. The line of spices is called the Carnitarian Presents. And so there's a chili blend in two versions. There's a meatball blend, and then there's now soon to be released a taco blend. And basically, it's like, it helps people with meal planning because each packet of spices sort of creates, 4 or 5 meals. It's like, I don't want to call it hamburger helper because that's nasty, but it's like, it helps you sort of make something that you can serve to the whole family. It's not like a sprinkle on spice where you would just put it on steak or something like that, but the packets are more to help you with meal planning and, like a start to finish meal, and the recipes on the packet for all of them. And, the response has been really great. So you can go to the website, which is the carnitarianlife.com, and order spice blends there. But like, the reactions have been wonderful. Like, the reviews have been great. People love the meatballs, and I think they're going to love the taco blend too. We've had it last night. I just had some left over for lunch, but I haven't gotten that taco blend out to people yet, but it makes
Uh,
delicious taco meat.
I'm definitely gonna get the meatball blend because I want to do a social experiment. I want to bring to my family meatballs, like no breadcrumbs, the whole thing, and see what the reaction and see what happens.
They're gonna love it. I mean, I have had some real deal Italians try the meatballs, like New Jersey Italians, and they're like, Linda, these are the best meatballs we've ever had.
You said
So
it so good. Linda, the
yeah,
best. Linda's got the best and the cutlets in the back.
right. And don't forget the gobble.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, great. Where could, if somebody wants to connect with you, where can they find you? You are the Carnitarian. Oh, before we get into that, did you ever get, I wanted to ask this. I almost forgot. Did you get any flack for some vegetarians for using the Carnitarian?
No,
Oh,
the vegetarian, no, the vegetarians don't come at me, but I will tell you what, like some people argue with the carnitarian. They're like, that's not what a carnitarian means. They'll say like a carnitarian means they don't eat fish, but they eat meat, and they get like they try to get technical. And I'm like, listen, I made the word up. Like it's not a real thing. Like it's totally make believe. And so it's whatever I want it to be. So, listen, Steve, it is what it is. It's me eating meat. And it's all the meat. So no, the vegetarians don't come at me, but like it's funny. That name comes like so I made that up, and like the origin of my saying that for the first time was when I was in that group zeroing in on health, and they were all calling carnivore at that time zero carb. But then there was all these caveats like, well, it's not really zero carb because there's some carbohydrate in liver and there's some carbohydrate in eggs, and so it's not really zero carb, it's just anything from an animal. And I went into that group one day and I was like, hey, you guys, these guys have been in there for 10 years. I'm like, why don't we just change it? Like, why don't you just call it a carnitarian diet, like the way they've got vegetarians have vegetarian diet? And they just laughed me out of the forum. They were like, lady, you're new here. It's zero carb. It is not carnitarian. Just get out of here with that. So I hung my head. I left. I was like, okay, I'll just call myself that. And
no, it's a great, it's a great Instagram
thank you.
social handle. Where can people find you other than the Instagram?
So typically there, but there is a Facebook page, The Carnitarian. My YouTube channel is The Carnitarian Life, and my website is also The Carnitarian Life. Um, on my Instagram, you'll find a link to my coaching. So you can book with me. I do individual sessions only, one-on-one private sessions. Whatever's discussed stays between me and the client, which a lot of people like. And I love to help. If you think I can help you in any way on your carnivore journey, I'm here for you. Just shoot me a message. I always respond to everybody on Instagram. So that's probably the best place to reach me first.
Awesome. Well, this was a great conversation. There's tons of highlights in here, and thank you for taking the time. This is awesome.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's absolutely my pleasure. It's great to meet you and great to talk to you.
Yeah, and thanks everybody listening to the Primal Foundations podcast.